Hi, this is Aaron from Classic Vacuum with a video on how to change your pump on your Rug Doctor Mighty Pro X3 or wide track machine. Your GoTech pump should include one GoTech pump, one regular wire, one diode wire, 2 elbows, and 2 hose clamps. I recommend maybe just going to the hardware store and get some 1/4" hose clamps. And here is the instructions. So your Rug Doctor machine, it's not spraying water. There's a couple things you can do to see what's going on. Maybe you need a pump, maybe you don't. First thing to check is, this is a quick disconnect. This is where you plug in your attachments for the tools. Sometimes this could not be plugged in all the way, so make sure that is firmly connected. Another popular problem is the filter inside gets gummed up. So if we take our tank off here, remove our basket, it's got 2 screws. Do not use your dirty water tank here to fill your clean water. It always goes bad. Get a separate bucket. If you've been using your dirty water tank, then that's probably why you have problems. If you look down here in the very bottom, you'll see there's a filter screen. Take that off and make sure that it's clean and clear. Here's what's not to check. It is not, nor is it ever, the spray tip. You look in here, you can see we got the 2 spray tips back in there. Those don't go bad. The only reason they go bad is because customers jam screwdrivers in them thinking they're plugged up. So just leave those guys alone. Those are probably not the problem. The last thing that can happen is, the way this pump works, it's a solenoid pump. It's got a coil on the outside. It's got a little piston inside. And if you haven't used your Rug Doctor a long time, it dries out and the metal corrodes, oxidizes. You can see this new pump, they've primed it. They put a fluid in here and they cap the ends. We want to keep it wet. If I don't use this machine for a year or two, a lot of times the pump just gets stuck. So something you can do is you can turn the machine on and just turn it on to the tool setting and just get ready. Sometimes after a minute or two, it'll just start spraying. And if you're familiar with your Rug Doctor, these are pretty noisy. So that's another troubleshooting step. Do you hear the pump? Do you not hear the pump? If you don't hear the pump, probably jammed. Sometimes they unstick. Typically they do not. Everybody's favorite fix, hit it with a hammer. Sometimes the pump's going to mount right on the other side of these. It is in rubber, so it's hard to get to, but sometimes giving a little bang in there, you can unstick the pump. If that doesn't do it, you probably need a new pump. It's the #1 issue with the Rug Doctor machines. Pump kits used to include these wheel caps so that you could take out the axle. Typically when you take these off, you're going to ruin them. They no longer include them. I do sell these if you need it. I'm going to attempt to not take the wheels out. It does make your life significantly easy to pop this cap off and slide the axle out. It will make your life easier. The way we access the pump is through this plate. It has some screws on the back and then some additional screws on the bottom. So I'm going to take the back ones out first because I'm going to show you another little trick. So you see the pump in there, you can open this up and take yourself a big flathead screwdriver. Again, turn the machine on to tools so that the pump's running all the time. Get ready for it to spray because it will spray. And just give it some taps. Some moderately strong taps. Don't get your wedge of your screwdriver on the ends. Break the ends, that'll make a mess. If it's not a little soft tap and it starts working, it's not going to work. And a lot of times once they stick, it means there's corrosion, and once they're corrosion, they're going to stick again. So these little tips I'm giving you to get it going, it might help you finish the job. get your job done that day, you should just still change the pump at your convenience. We've taken our screws off the back plate. Now we got to get the rest of our bottom off. On the X3, the screws in the back are not the same length as the screws on the bottom. So pay attention to the lengths of the screws. What I'm going to do to try to make this easier, I'm going to unscrew this hose from back here. Just spinning it out. It will remove. And I am going to try to not remove the axle. So as you can see, my major hang-up is the hose on this axle. And I want to be able to show you some things, so I'm going to remove the axle. You can see it's very hard to remove these without messing them up. So good thing I have a lot of these in stock. So I'll be able to just replace that later. This axle came out extremely easy. They don't always do that. Sometimes they really fight you. Okay, so now this opens us up and makes it way easier. Our next task is to get these off. So this is not clamped. This is the new clamp. But I'm just showing you the design and construction. You see this tab? This little teeny tiny tab here? The easiest way I found to get these off is to get under that with a thin flathead blade and bend that up. I don't want to do that to this one because I'm going to use this. After you bend that up, you get under it here and you just wedge that up. And at that point, sometimes you can just pry it open and it'll open up and split apart. Or you just get enough bent, or you just get enough bend on it that you can grab that corner with the diagonal cutters and rip it up. So it can take anywhere between 1 minute to 3 hours to do this task. So the first thing I like to do is rotate it so I get a good angle on what I'm doing. This screwdriver may be too thick. Nope. So you see we got that started there. And then it doesn't matter which side, but I do find the top side of the fold is easier. Again, this screwdriver might be a little thick. We'll see. Yep, we got it started. I got to rotate it back. And then I could either get under that with the screwdriver, or let's try my suggestion of getting it with the diagonal cutters and just ripping it out. And it just pulls apart there. I'll go ahead and undo my wires. This looks like it's an original factory pump. And you can see there is no fuse. This is a JLT pump. I know because it has the diode on the side. And you can see this one has a black wire. The one I had in a previous video had a white wire. But our black hot goes into the little hot wires coming out of the diode into the coil and out of the coil into whites. And then all your whites are connecting. There's no ground wire on this. So at this point, I can just I'll flip the whole thing around. It is hard to get to the other side. Since I'm here, I'll try to take this tube off. Sometimes heat can be your friend if you're really struggling to get these tubes off. Not a heat gun to max, a hair dryer or a heat gun to low. Depending on the age, they can fight you. That was nice and easy. So now I'm going to flip the machine over. So we flipped her over. We're on to the other side. Let's get a good angle of attack. So I did not bend the tab. It's pretty tight, but I'll show you here. I'm just getting under here and I'm just getting this started. Just getting it flared up a little bit, and I'm doing it, it's folded down this way. And again, I'm working from that top edge, because then now that I got that flared up, I can grab it and it'll twist straight off. So I can get a hold of it and I just twist it right off. It pulls it over the tab. Hopefully it's that easy when you go to do it. This one's making me look pretty good here so far. All right, now I'm going to flip it back over because it's easier to work on from the other side. Now's probably a good time to note the direction of flow. So if you look at your pump, they'll have an arrow that indicates the direction of flow. If you forget and you've already removed your pump, just look at the tubes. Where do they go? They're kind of hard because they go up into the body. You can wiggle them. The in tube, which is this side, will go up and it will go into that intake tube in the tank. The other side, if we trace it up, it'll go back up into the back of the machine to the quick disconnect. So if you forget, just watch where the tubes go. And then they just fit in here into this mount, into these little rubber dog ears. And that is our old JLT pump. Here's our shiny new GoTech pump. We got to put elbows on it. Just spin our elbows, and if you want to get fancy and use the tape, you can, but it's not typically necessary. It's a soft material with a lot of threads. Try to get your elbows lined up. And then the flow goes down on this, and this is your intake. So I'm going to feed this back into these dog ears here, just like so. If it's a little wide, not wide, it's okay. They vibrate real bad, so you don't want to just direct mount it because it would be so shaky and loud. I mean, you can still hear and feel them quite a bit. Just an approximate, getting them on there. Next, we have black to diode. That's two positives. There's a male, female. Sometimes they fit together, sometimes they don't. You can see here, already have a problem. Female, 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 female. So if you have solderless connections, great. This is a little redundant. So what I'm going to do in this case, I'm just going to remove the solder or the wire connection here, the crimp connection, and replace it with a wire nut. And cut my end off. Doesn't matter which because they were the same. We're going to use our wire nut and just reconnect it. Good enough. Now, whenever doing the wire nuts, always give each wire a little tug. make sure all three got a good bite into the connection there. And then we'll hook these to the pump. So one thing about these new pumps that's a little strange is the connections, the way they're on the side. It's my understanding that you always put your control before your load. So load meaning the pump. The diode basically acts like a one-way switch, therefore it is control. That's why I always feel the need to put the diode onto the black wire. Cord switch motor. If we did put the diode on the other side onto the white, it would function. Everything would function fine. And then we'll just get that in a position where we know is going to be good for the tubes. I'm a glutton for punishment, so I'm going to put these on because they're free. To tighten these clamps, you can use diagonal cutters, but this is what we use to clamp them down. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. Make sure your connections have not come undone. You know, don't pull them hard, but make sure they're still firmly connected. We'll do our best to neaten up the wires here with a zip tie that is not included. We're happy to provide this service at Classic Vacuum in North Canton, Worcester. If you're not wanting to do this yourself, we can even do it if you're not local. It's just you have to pay the shipping. Getting a box is kind of difficult, but we'll still do it if you can get it here and get it home. You know, we'll help you with the shipping. And just contact us and get your rate quote, but I'll need to know the size of your box. We're going to go ahead and put this back in, and then we're going to put our axle through. So if you see, this piece is what hooks on to the end of this hose here. I'm actually going to take this off, and we'll reattach this after we're done. It'll give us a little more room to work. When I'm putting this on, I got to make sure I want to keep that lined up with the hole here. Or at least close enough I can dig it out later. I'm going to give her a quick check. Going to make sure that the pump is still plugged in. I should be able to hear or feel it running. I'll put my hand right here by where the pump is mounted. What I was doing is toggling the machine between carpet and tools, and you could hear the motor comes on and then the motor and the pump. And we can hear the difference, and I could clearly hear and feel the pump is running. That's great. Remembering that in this particular machine, the screws up top were shorter. So putting these shorter screws up here. The rest were all the same. Also, I don't have this torqued very high. It's on 3 on this. This is just screwing in the plastic. You will rip it out. Older rug ductors had screw bosses. They will strip out. So if you have screw bosses, go backwards before you go forwards. That will help. If you're just going in the plastic, like on these X3s, just torque it down. You don't have to take this off, but if you do, pour yourself out some tube there. thread it on, put the clips on the side, angle it in, and then the key is not to push it in through all the way. It kind of just goes in a little bit, and then it just holds it there, just like so. Got a little pivot action. Jam it in too hard, it just goes through. So we're gonna put our wheel back on. This came out easy, so it should go in easy. There's a special tool they make for these, but just find yourself the right size nut driver and a hammer. Probably use a socket also. And don't over tighten it, so just smush down the sides. So, all right, we'll put our basket back on here with our 2 screws. We use a separate bucket to fill our machine, not the dirty water tank. I don't want to get my bench wet and the floor wet, so I'm going to use a device called a drain hose. We sell these on our website. It allows you to conveniently hook into the back of the machine and just drain out water. You could also use your toolkit and utilize that, but you'd have to hold the trigger. If you ever do have a stuck pump or somebody has a lot of soap suds in the water, it doesn't hurt to take a tank or two of very hot, clean tap water and just cycle through a couple tanks of clean water. That can help to clean out your pump. I'm going to turn this on to the tool setting so that it pumps all the time. And if it worked, it worked. So the last check we want to do is, now that we've ran some water through, we just want to look underneath and feel, is there any wetness? Maybe our hose clamp isn't on properly, or our elbow's leaking and the bench is dry. So I'd say we can call this a success. That was my video on how to change the pump on a Rug Doctor. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. This will work on a Mighty Pro X3, a regular Mighty Pro, or a wide track. The basic principles are the same, and the instruction should help you with the differences. We do sell these pumps on our website. If you have any questions or I missed something, leave it in the comments below. And we do service these at our stores locally in North Canton and Worcester, Ohio. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.